Welcome back, focused learners, to another explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into the modern labor market. Specifically, we're looking at this massive, seismic shift that's completely transformed how millions of us actually work and earn a living. Whether you're hunting for a side hustle, maybe thinking about a full-time freelance career, or you're just kind of curious about how all these modern apps are reshaping employment, well, you're in exactly the right place. We are going to break down the math, the myths, and the realities of the modern hustle.
Okay, let's dive into this. We see the marketing hype literally everywhere, right? Want to be your own boss? Work right from your phone. Earn on your own schedule. It is an incredibly compelling pitch. I get it. Apps that let you drive, deliver, or freelance with just the tap of a button, they promise this total, ultimate freedom. But what does it actually mean for your bottom line when you trade in that traditional time clock for an app?
Here's our blueprint for today. We'll start by defining the gig economy, then we'll look at the undeniable upsides, followed by the hidden downsides. After that, we're going to do a real-world reality check, figure out how to actually survive self-employment taxes, and wrap up by talking about how to be a strategic gig worker.
All right, part one, defining the gig economy. What exactly is a 1099 worker? Let's clarify the actual definitions behind all these buzzwords.
So, economists define the gig economy as a labor market made up of short-term contracts, freelance work, and platform-based jobs, rather than permanent employment. The absolute key distinction here is how these workers are classified. They are not your traditional W-2 employees. Instead, they're classified as independent contractors, or what's commonly known in the tax world as 1099 workers.
And this ecosystem, it includes so many different types of jobs. It's rideshare driving, picking up passengers for a fee. It's food and grocery delivery. It's freelance creative work like graphic design, photography, or writing. Maybe it's online tutoring, providing handyman and home repair services, selling your handmade vintage goods online, or just taking on task-based services like assembling furniture or helping someone move. It is a massive, incredibly diverse ecosystem. Moving on to part two, the upside of gig work, or the appeal of the hustle. We really have to acknowledge exactly why millions of students, parents, and artists are so deeply drawn to this model. First off, the unmatched flexibility. You set your own hours, work when you want, stop when you want. Second, there's an incredibly low barrier to entry. If you've got a car and a license, you can drive. If you have a specific skill, you can freelance right now. No fancy formal education required. Third is variety. You aren't locked into one single employer or stuck in one location. And finally, there's a real potential for higher hourly rates. Because you handle your own overhead, skilled freelancers can very often charge a premium for their flexibility compared to a standard salaried employee. But now we need to take a collective breath and shift gears to part three, the hidden downside, or the cost of independence. Let's get very grounded and serious for a second. Because the reality of gig work, well, it isn't always as glamorous as the commercials make it seem. Let's compare a traditional W-2 employee with a 1099 gig worker. On the employee side, you've got employer-sponsored benefits and legal protections. On the gig worker side, zero safety net and full liability. When you work a traditional job, you get that safety net built right in. But as an independent contractor, you do not get employer-sponsored health insurance, no paid sick days, no employer matching your retirement contributions. You are entirely 100% on your own.
Here is the stark reality of the cons. Beyond having absolutely no benefits, gig workers deal with variable, totally unpredictable income. A slow week literally means less money, making budgeting incredibly tight when you don't have that predictable paycheck. You also carry the full self-employment tax burden yourself. If the work just dries up, you generally can't file for unemployment protection. And you've got to pay all out-of-pocket overhead expenses. Just think about it. A delivery driver pays for their own gas and car maintenance. A freelance photographer has to buy their own wildly expensive camera equipment.
To really wrap our heads around this, it is time for part four, a real-world reality check. Let me introduce you to Destiny. We're going to use Destiny, who's a rideshare driver, as a case study to anchor all these abstract concepts into some cold, hard, concrete math. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that big number right there, $800. Destiny drives for a rideshare platform and earns $800 a week in gross fares. Now, that sounds pretty impressive, right? If you see $800 a week, you're probably thinking you're doing incredibly well. But before Destiny starts celebrating, let's look at what she actually takes home. So, Destiny starts with gross earnings of $800, but right off the top, she owes an estimated $122 in self-employment tax. Then she spends $80 on gas just driving those passengers around. A portion of her monthly car insurance comes out to about $34 a week, and wear and tear maintenance on her vehicle, that costs her another $50. Look at that bottom line. Her actual net take-home is just $514. Those hidden overhead costs rapidly ate away her gross pay.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real punch-in-the-gut reality of gig work overhead. When we visualize Destiny's gross income as a pie, she is only taking home 64% of it. Taxes eat 15%, gas takes 10%, and maintenance and insurance chew up another 11%. Think about that. She's doing 100% of the work, but only taking home 64% of the pie. And remember, out of that 64%, she still has to somehow figure out how to buy her own health insurance.
Which brings us to Part 5, Surviving Self-Employment Taxes, otherwise known as the ultimate trap. Seriously, I urgently need to warn you about the absolute biggest financial pitfall of 1099 work.
15.3%. When you work a standard job, your employer pays half of your payroll taxes. But when you're a gig worker, you are the employer and the employee. That means you owe the full 15.3% self-employment tax, and yes, that is on top of your standard income tax. Because there is no employer withholding taxes from your payments for you, it is entirely your responsibility to set this money aside.
If you don't prepare for that 15.3%, I promise you, you will owe a massive sum and very likely penalties when you file your tax return. So here is the practical, demystifying tax survival rule. Step 1, get paid. Step 2, immediately move 25 to 30% of every single payment into a totally separate savings account. Step 3, do not touch it until the tax bill arrives. If you follow this rule, you will survive the tax trap. For sure.
So, let's get into Part 6, the strategic gig worker, or playing the game right. We've looked at the tough math, but I really want to end on an empowering note. How do you actually use gig work to your long-term advantage?
The key here is to build income, experience, and a portfolio all at the exact same time. For example, imagine a student doing freelance web development or graphic design to earn cash while they finish school. They're earning money, sure, but they're also building a professional portfolio and gaining real-world client experience simultaneously. They are totally double-dipping on the benefits. So the crucial point is this: use gig work strategically rather than letting it become a financial trap. It is an absolutely excellent tool for earning extra money, but only if it's managed with very clear math, strict financial boundaries, and a solid, realistic understanding of your own overhead. That brings us to the end of our explainer, and I want to leave you with a direct challenge today. Evaluate your own hustle. Ask yourself, is your gig a stepping stone propelling you forward toward a larger goal, or is the overhead and tax burden slowly turning it into a financial trap? Do the math, track your expenses, and make absolutely sure the hustle is actually working for you. Keep learning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.